I saw them switch folders. That's all she said. 4 little words. But in that boardroom, with a $10 billion deal on the line and a billionaire staring down at a glossy contract that would change everything, those 4 words landed like a bomb. Everyone went quiet. Lawyers froze mid-page. Assistants stopped breathing. Even the air conditioning hum suddenly felt too loud. The girl standing in the doorway wasn't dressed like an executive. No blazer. No heels. Just black jeans, a slightly oversized white shirt, and a badge clipped awkwardly to her pocket. Lena, the housekeeper's daughter, the one everyone was used to passing in the halls without looking twice. And yet, in that moment, every eye in the room was on her. Adrian Cole, the billionaire himself, slowly lifted his gaze from the contract. His jaw tightened. You know that look people get when they realize something is very, very wrong, but they're not sure what yet? That was Adrian. "Excuse me," he said, his voice low but sharp. "What did you just say?" Lena swallowed. Her heart was pounding so hard she could feel it behind her eyes, but she forced herself to meet his eyes. I saw them switch folders," she repeated, voice trembling but clear. "That's not the contract you agreed to sign." And right then, as everyone turned from the billionaire to the girl and back again, you could feel it. That invisible line between the people who had power and the person who wasn't supposed to matter at all. What nobody in that room knew was that this wasn't just about a folder. It was about greed, betrayal, a man who thought he could outsmart everyone, and a girl who refused to stay quiet, even when speaking up might cost her mother her job and cost her everything. Let's go back, because stories like this never start in the boardroom. They start in the places nobody sees, like a service elevator, or a basement laundry room, or a small, neat staff apartment where a mother prays her daughter can have a better life than she did. Lena Alvarez was 18, just out of high school, and stuck in that strange in-between space where everyone expects you to know what you want to do with your life, but you're barely figuring out who you are. Her mom, Rosa, had worked for the Cole family for almost 12 years. She was the head housekeeper in one of the most expensive properties in the city, Adrian Cole's hilltop estate overlooking everything. You know the kind of place I'm talking about. Glass walls, infinity pool, private driveway with gates that cost more than most people's cars. For most of Lena's life, the house had just felt like background. The place where her mother disappeared to for long shifts, where she sometimes spent weekends helping out. She knew the smell of the polished floors, the pattern of the tiles, the way the sunlight slid across the marble in the afternoons. But she didn't belong there. Not really. Her reality was the small apartment in a crowded neighborhood, the squeaky ceiling fan, the humming fridge, and the peeling paint in the hallway that the landlord kept promising to fix. On the morning everything started, Lena was sitting at their tiny kitchen table, staring at her laptop, student loan websites, scholarship applications, open tabs on how to write a personal statement. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, but her mind was somewhere else. "Mija." Rosa's voice floated from the cramped bedroom. "Are you ready? I don't want to be late. You know how they are with time." Lena snapped out of it. "Yeah, Mama, I'm ready." She closed the laptop and took a deep breath. Today wasn't a normal day. Today, she wasn't just staying home or looking for part-time jobs. Today, she was going to the estate with her mother, because Rosa had convinced the estate manager to let Lena help out for a few days. Temporary housekeeping support, they called it. Extra hands during a very important business week. And to Rosa, it was more than that. It was a chance. "Maybe someone sees you," Rosa had said, smoothing her daughter's hair the night before. "You are smart, Lena. Just because we clean the floors doesn't mean you will. Maybe Mr. Cole needs an assistant, or the office needs an intern. Who knows?" Lena had smiled, even though she didn't really believe that. Billionaires didn't just pluck girls from the staff list and give them opportunities, right? Still, it was better than doing nothing. So she went. If you've ever walked into a place that made you feel like you weren't supposed to touch anything, you know how Lena felt. The Cole estate wasn't just big. It was designed to remind you of your place. The driveway curved through sculpted gardens. The fountains out front sent water arching into the sky like the house itself was exhaling money. Inside, the floor was cool glossy marble, and the air smelled like some expensive candle that claimed to be white fig and cedar moss or something like that. Rosa walked a little faster as they entered through the staff entrance at the side. Her posture changed. At home, she was warm, relaxed, always humming. Hey! Her shoulders were a little tighter, her bun a little neater, her smile more controlled. The staff entrance opened into a hallway that led down to the service wing, the laundry room, storage closets, the staff cafeteria, the break area. You could hear the low buzz of vacuum cleaners and the distant clink of dishes. "Remember what I told you," Rosa whispered as they walked. "Be polite. Be quick. Don't interrupt the owners or the guests. If you don't know where something goes, ask. And if Ms. Camila or Mr. Blake tells you something, you listen, okay?" Lena nodded. Okay. Ms. Camila Duarte was the estate manager, a sharp woman in her 40s with sleek hair and a phone glued to her hand. She treated the house like a five-star hotel, and the staff like soldiers. Mr. Blake Turner was Adrian's personal assistant, early 30s, always in a suit, always moving fast. Lena had met him once when he'd come down to the laundry room looking for a missing jacket. He'd barely looked at her, but Rosa said he was fair. Fair but demanding, Rosa would say. He keeps the whole thing running. But there was someone else Rosa mentioned that morning as they walked into the staff room. Someone whose name made her voice change. Victor Hale. Try not to cross his path, Rosa muttered. He's one of Mr. Cole's partners. Very important. Not very kind. Lena frowned. What do you mean? Rosa just shook her head. You'll see. Just be invisible around him. It's easier. Have you ever noticed how people with the least power are told to make themselves small around the people with the most power? That was Rosa's survival strategy. Invisible was safe. But Lena wasn't built to be invisible forever. The first time Lena saw Adrian Cole up close, he wasn't in a suit. He wasn't surrounded by bodyguards or cameras. He was in sweatpants and a t-shirt, barefoot, pacing his own kitchen at 6 in the morning with a mug of coffee in his hand. Lena was helping set out a tray of fruit and pastries for the morning meeting. Rosa had brought her up, whispering instructions like a coach before a big game. Put the croissants, hey. No, not like that, like this. No crumbs. Smile. Don't stare, okay? Then Adrian walked in. He was taller than Lena expected, with the kind of presence that made the room feel smaller. His hair was dark with a few threads of gray at the temples, and there were lines at the corners of his eyes that made him look like someone who had seen too much and slept too little. He didn't notice them at first. He was talking into a Bluetooth earpiece. No, David, we're not moving the deadline again. If they want the deal, they show up on time, he said, frustration in every word. I don't care if their lawyer is stuck in traffic. Tell them we close this week or not at all. He ended the call, ran a hand over his face, and turned toward the counter. That was when he saw them. Rosa straightened immediately. Good morning, Mr. Cole. Adrian's expression softened a little. Morning, Rosa. New help. He glanced at Lena, and for a split second, she forgot to breathe. Up close, she could see that his eyes were surprising warm hazel. Yes, sir, Rosa said quickly. This is my daughter, Lena. She's helping for a few days. Adrian gave Lena a brief nod. Nice to meet you, Lena. Thank you for helping. She managed something like a smile. You're welcome, sir. He reached for a croissant, then paused, noticing the way Lena had arranged the tray. You did this? He asked. Her eyes darted to Rosa, then back to him. Ah, yes. With my mom. A tiny, almost amused smile tugged at his lips. Attention to detail. I like that. And just like that, he moved on, grabbing his coffee, calling for Blake, heading into the main living room where screens were already lighting up for a video conference. To him, it was probably a throwaway interaction. To Lena, it was complicated. She felt small and seen at the same time. It was the first time she realized the billionaire wasn't a myth or a headline. He was a tired man in sweatpants, juggling a million problems while she was trying to figure out her own life. Maybe you've had a moment like that, when someone you thought was larger than life suddenly became painfully human. By noon that day, the whole house was a pressure cooker. The staff whispered about it in the laundry room, in the hallway, in the staff cafeteria. The biggest merger in the firm's history. A $10 billion acquisition. Global expansion. And the name Hale Dynamics was everywhere. That was Victor Hale's company. Or, more accurately, the company his father had built and he'd inherited. He was Adrian's longtime partner, though that word meant different things depending on who you asked. Some said friends. Some said rivals. Some said two sharks who learned to swim in the same tank. What mattered that week was simple. Adrian's company, Cole International, was about to sign a massive contract with Hale Dynamics. It would give Adrian's firm huge leverage in the tech logistics space. It would make everyone on the board even richer than they already were. And for Victor, rumor was this deal would save him. Because what his polished press statements didn't mention was that his company was in trouble. Bad investments, hidden losses, debt. Contracts were being drawn, studied, revised. Lawyers moved in and out of the house like bees. Folders, documents, USB drives. It was a blizzard of paper and tension. Lena watched all of this from the edges. She spent a day changing sheets, dusting, helping her mother with laundry. But she heard things. She saw things. Adrian's voice rising in the study. Victor's laughter echoing down the hall. Blake muttering under his breath about numbers not adding up. At one point, as Lena passed the open doorway to the home office with a basket of folded towels, she saw them, Adrian and Victor, facing each other across the massive desk. Adrian's face was serious. Victor's was smiling, but it wasn't a warm smile. It was the kind of smile that never reached the eyes. And standing slightly behind Victor, like a well-dressed shadow, was Sienna Rhodes, Victor's fiancée. She was the kind of beautiful that made people stay. Long, sleek hair, expensive jewelry, a dress that probably cost more than Lena's entire wardrobe. But it wasn't her beauty that caught Lena's attention. It was her eyes. Sharp, calculating, watching everything, like she was taking notes in her head. Lena moved on quickly, not wanting to get caught. She didn't know it then, but that hallway walk by, that was the first moment she stepped into the edges of a storm she didn't know existed yet. Later that afternoon, Lena was in one of the upstairs guest rooms, straightening pillows, when she heard shouting. Not loud, out-of-control shouting. Controlled shouting. The kind you do when you want to show someone who's in charge, but you're still technically in a professional environment. The door was slightly open. "You listen to me," a male voice hissed. "If you want to keep this job, you don't question me. Understand?" There was a pause. "Yes, sir," a quieter male voice said. Lena recognized it as Daniel, one of the junior assistants. Curiosity tugged at her, but she quickly stepped back, reminding herself of Rosa's rule. Don't listen at doors. Don't eavesdrop. It always ends badly. She turned to leave, then nearly ran into someone. A man. Tall. Smelling faintly of cologne and something metallic, like expensive watch steel. He wore a tailored navy suit and an expression that said he was used to people getting out of his way. "Watch it," he snapped. Lena froze. "Sorry, sir." He looked her up and down, not seeing her as a person, just as an inconvenience blocking his path. Then he walked past her into the room, where the shouting had come from. As he did, Daniel practically bowed. "Mr. Hale, sir." "Victor." "Of course." Lena hurried away, cheeks burning, even though she hadn't done anything wrong. If you've ever had someone talk to you like you're furniture, you know that feeling. It sticks. Moments later, as she walked down the back staircase, she heard footsteps behind her. "Hey, wait." It was Daniel. He looked flustered, his tie slightly crooked. He must have taken the servant stairs to avoid being seen leaving Victor's room. "Sorry about that," he muttered, running a hand through his hair. Lena frowned. "About what?" "Mr. Hale. His always like that." Daniel sighed. "Don't take it personally. If you're not signing his checks or boosting his ego, you're invisible." She let out a small, humorless laugh. "I'm used to it." Daniel gave her a sympathetic look. "You're Rosa's daughter, right?" "Lena." "Yeah. I'm Daniel. Personal assistant. Or, I don't know, professional punching bag. Depends on the day." He shrugged, trying to joke it off. "Anyway, you didn't deserve that." He could have just said, "Excuse me." Lena smiled faintly. People like that don't really do excuse me. Daniel hesitated, then lowered his voice. If you're smart, stay out of anything involving him this week. It's going to get messy. Messy how? Lena wanted to ask, but he was already hurrying off, phone buzzing in his hand. She watched him go. Something gnawed at her. A quiet voice in the back of her mind, whispering that there was more going on beneath the surface. You ever have that feeling? Like your gut knows there's a story happening that no one is telling you? The next morning, Lena's life changed in less than 10 seconds. Not that she knew it right away. She thought she was just bringing in coffee. Camila had assigned her to help with the meeting setup because they were short-staffed. Conference room on the main floor, she'd said briskly. Board meeting. Mr. Cole, Mr. Hale, lawyers, a few investors. You'll bring in coffee, water, and snacks. Once they start, don't interrupt unless they ask for something. Leave everything on the side table. Rosa had pulled Lena aside before she went upstairs. Don't draw attention to yourself, she whispered. You're just there to help. Don't linger. I know, Mama, Lena said. But sometimes, life doesn't care what you know. It just throws you into the middle of the story. The conference room was a sleek glass box overlooking the city below. The table was long and polished, the chairs high-backed and intimidating. Screens on the walls displayed financial graphs and logos. Adrian was already there when Lena entered with the first tray. He stood near the windows, staring out at the skyline, hands in his pockets. He looked tired. Not just physically, tired in his bones. On the table lay a black leather folder with the silver-embossed logo of Hale Dynamics. Even from across the room, Lena could see how carefully it had been placed. Like it was more than paper. Like it was a loaded weapon. She arranged the cups and carafes of coffee quietly. Adrian barely glanced at her. Thank you, he said absently. Victor arrived a few minutes later. Confident. Smiling. Sienna glided in at his side, followed by two lawyers dragging rolling briefcases. Daniel came in behind them, carrying another black folder identical to the one on the table. Adrian, Victor said warmly, like they were old friends catching up over drinks instead of about to gamble thousands of jobs. Ready to make history. Ready to sign what we agreed on, Adrian replied coolly. Let's get started. Lena slipped back out, as instructed. But here's the thing. Camila had forgotten to send an extra staff member to handle the snacks. So a few minutes later, Lena was sent back in with a second tray, this time of fruit and pastries. She pushed the door open quietly, and walked straight into the moment that would change everything. The room was quieter now. The lawyers were whispering in one corner. Adrian was flipping through a document not inside the main folder yet, while Victor and Sienna stood near the side table, talking in low voices. As Lena stepped in, she saw it. Victor had two folders in his hands, one open, one closed. The one on the table in front of Adrian had been slightly shifted, and with a practiced, almost casual movement, Victor placed the open folder on the side table and set the closed one where the open one had been. Swap. Like it was nothing. Like he'd done it 1,000 times. Lena froze. Sienna's eyes flicked to her, sharp as a knife. For a second, nobody moved. You know that feeling when you're not sure if you really saw what you think you saw. The room felt like it was vibrating. Can we help you? Sienna asked, her tone polite but her eyes anything but. Lena swallowed. Sorry, I was told to bring these in. Victor turned, his smile snapping into place. Ah, the coffee girl, he said lightly. Just set it there. Thank you. He picked up one of the croissants without looking at her again, already turning back to Adrian. Lena lowered the tray onto the side table, heart racing. Her eyes flicked to the folders. They looked identical. Same leather, same logo, same everything. But she knew what she'd seen. One had been open, with a pen resting on top. The other had been closed, and he had switched them. Her brain scrambled to make sense of it. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe the open one had just been a draft. Maybe. Lena. She flinched at the sharp whisper. Camila stood in the doorway, eyebrows raised. Why are you still in here? Go. They're about to start. Sorry, Lena muttered, backing away. She walked out. The door closed behind her with a soft click. But her mind stayed inside that room. On those folders. On Sienna's eyes. On Victor's too smooth smile. On the way he'd spoken to Daniel yesterday. Like he owned him. Something was wrong. Deeply wrong. If you were in Lena's shoes, what would you have done? Be honest with yourself for a second. You're 18. You're working temporarily at a billionaire's house because your mother pulled in a favor. You just saw one of the most powerful men in the building, your mom's boss's partner, switch what might be an important contract. You don't know the details. You have no proof. You just know what you saw. Do you speak up? Or do you stay quiet? Lena walked down the hallway in a daze. She barely heard the hum of voices, the swoosh of the elevator doors, the distant ring of a phone. All she could hear was the pounding of her own heart. In the staff corridor, she finally stopped, pressing her back against the wall. Okay, she whispered to herself. Think. Just think. Maybe she was overreacting. Maybe it was normal. Maybe. Lena. She jumped. Rosa was there, carrying a stack of folded towels, her face lined with concern. ¿Qué pasó? You look like you saw a ghost. Lena swallowed hard. Mama, can I ask you something? Rosa frowned. Of course. If someone changed something important, like a document or a folder or something, and you saw it, but you weren't supposed to be there, what would you do? Rosa's hands tightened on the towels. Why are you asking? Lena hesitated. Because that was the problem, right? If she told her mother, Rosa would be terrified. This job was their lifeline. Rent, food, everything. Rosa had given years of her life to this family. The last thing Lena wanted was to put that at risk. It's just hypothetical, Lena lied. Rosa studied her for a long moment. You know how this world works, Mija, she said quietly. People like us, we see things. We hear things. And if we want to keep our jobs, we mind our own business. Lena's stomach twisted. Even if it's wrong. Rosa's expression softened, pain flickering in her eyes. Especially if it's wrong, she whispered. The rich, they have their own rules. If you try to expose something, they don't lose. We do. She reached out and squeezed Lena's hand. Please, don't get involved in anything. Just do your work, okay? Finish this week. Then we'll focus on your applications, your future. Don't let their world pull you in. It's not for us. Lena nodded slowly. Okay. But her chest felt tight. Because Rosa wasn't wrong. She was just tired of living in a world where being right wasn't enough. While Lena wrestled with her conscience downstairs, something else was happening upstairs. In a smaller office off the main hall, Blake sat at a desk, staring at two documents side by side. One was an earlier draft of the Hale Dynamics acquisition deal. The other was the final version that had been sent over the night before. The numbers didn't match. At first, he thought he was just tired. He rubbed his eyes and leaned closer. In the draft, the profit-sharing clause was clear. 50-50 on specific new ventures, with caps and safety nets for Coal International. In the final version, there was a subtle shift in language. A tiny word here. A missing line there. Enough to swing hundreds of millions of dollars toward Hale Dynamics. Enough to expose Coal International to massive risk if things went south. Blake's stomach churned. He picked up his phone. Legal, he said, as soon as the line connected. Did any of you sign off on these changes? There was a pause on the other end. Changes? The head lawyer asked. What changes? Blake's fingers drummed on the desk. The ones in Section 14B, subsection. We didn't receive a revised 14B, the lawyer interrupted. Our last approved version still has the original split. Are you looking at something different? Blake stared at the page. Cold dread crept up his spine. Yeah, he said slowly. Yeah, I am. Send it to us, the lawyer said quickly. Right now. Blake hung up and scanned the document into the shared drive, shooting off the email with shaking hands. Then he stood. He needed to get to Adrian. Now. But as he hurried toward the conference room, he saw something that made him stop in his tracks. Victor and Sienna, standing near the door, talking in low voices. Sienna's hand brushed his sleeve, her voice soft. Once it's signed, everything changes, she murmured. You know that, right? Victor smirked. That's the point. Blake ducked back into the side hallway before they could see him. His heart was racing now for a different reason. Something was very, very wrong. And Adrian was about to sign something he absolutely should not sign. Downstairs, in the staff cafeteria, Lena sat at a table, picking at a sandwich she didn't really want. The TV in the corner played some midday news, but she wasn't listening. Her mind replayed the scene over and over. The folders, the switch, Victor's voice, Sienna's eyes. What if you're wrong? She muttered to herself. If she was wrong, she'd look crazy. If she was right, then what? What could she do? She was just the housekeeper's daughter. Earth to Lena, a voice said. She looked up. Daniel stood there with a tray, looking exhausted. He slid into the seat across from her. You look how I feel, he said. Everything okay? Lena hesitated. Then, before she could talk herself out of it, she leaned in. Daniel, can I ask you something? And you have to promise not to freak out. He blinked. That's not exactly comforting, but okay. What's up? She glanced around to make sure no one was close enough to hear. I think I saw something, she whispered. In the conference room, with Mr. Hale. And the contract. Daniel's face drained of color. What do you mean, something? He had 2 folders, she said quickly, words tumbling out. One was open, one was closed. And when I went in with the pastries, he switched them. The one that was in front of Mr. Cole, he swapped it for the other one. Daniel stared at her. For a second, he said nothing. Then he cursed it under his breath. Of course he did, he muttered. Lena frowned. You believe me? Do I believe that Victor would pull something shady? Daniel said bitterly. Yes, absolutely. The man breathed shady. He ran a hand through his hair. Listen, you didn't hear this from me, but Blake has been on edge all morning about some last-minute changes from Hale Dynamics. He said the profit-sharing clause looked off. Legal didn't sign off on it. If Victor smuggled in a revised version and Adrian signs it without noticing. Daniel didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Lena's heart sank. So, what do we do? She whispered. Daniel laughed, but there was no humor in it. He said. There's no we, Lena. I'm an assistant. You have no offense, staff. We don't get to do anything. We watch. We survive. Even if we know it's wrong, she shot back, surprising herself with the anger in her voice. Daniel's expression softened. You're new to this world, he said quietly. This is how it works. The people at the top play games with more zeros than we'll ever see. And if they screw up, they find someone like us to blame. If you say something and you're wrong, you're fired. If you say something and you're right, you're still fired. Maybe your mom, too. Lena swallowed. There it was again. The fee. The invisible choke chain that kept people like her in line. So you're saying I should just do nothing? She asked. Daniel looked away. I'm saying you should be careful, he said. I'm saying this isn't your fight. Lena sat back, stunned. Her chest felt tight with frustration. Okay, she said flatly. Thanks for the advice. He sighed. Lena. But she was already standing up. She couldn't sit there anymore. She needed air. She walked out of the cafeteria, out through the staff entrance, and into the side garden where Rosa liked to take her 5-minute breaks. The sky was a clear blue. The city spread out below, unaware of the war happening behind glass walls on the hill. Lena sank onto a bench and buried her face in her hands. If you're still watching this, the narrator in me wants to ask you something. What would you do in her place? Would you risk your mother's job, your only income, your safety, for the chance to stop a billionaire from signing a bad contract he didn't even know about? Tell me in the comments what you think you'd do. Because what Lena did next, she didn't do it because she wasn't scared. She did it because she was. And she was tired of fear making all the decisions. The meeting was scheduled to move from preliminary discussion to the official signing at 3 p.m. By 2:45, the entire house felt like it was holding its breath. Rosa worked quietly in the background, polishing already shining surfaces just to keep her hands busy. Camila paced through the hallways, checking and rechecking that everything was perfect. Security stood a little closer to the main doors. Staff spoke in whispers. Upstairs, in the guest suite reserved for important visitors. Sienna adjusted her lipstick in the mirror. "Are you nervous?" she asked lazily, glancing at Victor's reflection behind her. He was fastening his cufflinks, expression smug. "Nervous," he repeated. "No, I'm excited." "You're about to gamble your father's company," she said softly. He smiled. "Gamble? Sweetheart, I'm about to cheat the house. That's not gambling. That's strategy." She turned toward him, lips curving. "And if Adrian figures it out?" "He won't," Victor said confidently. "By the time he sees the full picture, the ink will be dry. He'll be too locked in to back out without tanking his own reputation. And if he tries to fight it, we've got enough leverage to make sure he doesn't." Sienna slid her arms around his neck. "Remind me again," she murmured. "What happens to us after this?" "We walk away richer than we ever dreamed," he said. "We expand. We buy that island you like, and we never have to answer to anyone again." She smiled. "Then I'm all in." You know those moments where villains basically confess their entire plan to each other? This was one of those moments. The difference is, nobody was there to hear it. Nobody except us. And you. And Lena, who, at that exact moment, was standing in a hallway a few floors down, staring at a closed door. Adrian's study. She'd walked there in a haze, hardly remembering the path. Her heart hammered in her throat as she raised her hand. She shouldn't be there. She knew that. If Camila caught her, she'd be in trouble. But her feet had brought her there anyway. She stood there for a full 30 seconds, her hand hovering inches from the wood. "Don't do it," her fear whispered. "Someone has to," her conscience argued. Her stomach twisted. Finally, she let her hand fall. She turned to leave, and walked straight into Adrian. He was striding down the hall with Blake at his side, both of them deep in conversation. Adrian's expression was stormy, Blake's pale. They almost collided. Lena stumbled back. I'm sorry, sir." Adrian stopped. "Lena," he said, surprise flickering in his eyes. "Everything okay?" Blake glanced between them, curious and impatient. "We're actually on our way to—" But he stopped when he saw Lena's face. She looked like someone standing on the edge of a cliff. "Sir," she blurted. I need to tell you something." Blake frowned. Now is really not a good. Adrian held up a hand, eyes still on Lena. "Give us a minute," he said. Blake hesitated. "Adrian." "A minute," Adrian repeated. Blake clenched his jaw, then nodded stiffly and stepped back, leaning against the wall a few feet away. Adrian turned fully to Lena. "What is it?" he asked quietly. And right there, between the polished wood paneling and the framed modern art, a billionaire and a housekeeper's daughter faced each other like two people on opposite sides of a glass wall. Lena's throat felt tight. "If you say this," the fear whispered, "there's no going back." She looked up into his eyes. "I saw Mr. Hale switch the contract folder," she said, "in the conference room, right before the meeting started. The folder you're about to sign, I don't think it's the one you agreed to." Silence. Absolute silence. Blake pushed off the wall, eyes widening. "What?" Adrian's face didn't change, but something in his eyes sharpened. "Explain," he said. So she did. She told him about bringing in the pastries, about the open folder and the closed one, about the switch, about Sienna watching, about how quickly it had happened. She told him about how the folders looked the same, but she knew what she'd seen. Her voice shook, but she held his gaze. Then she added, almost in a whisper, "I know I'm just staff, and I know I'm not supposed to say anything. My mom will probably be furious at me, but you looked tired and angry, and I didn't want you to sign something you didn't mean to." Adrian was very, very still. "Lena," Blake said, stepping closer, "you're sure about this? You're absolutely sure?" She nodded, tears stinging her eyes. "Yes, I swear. I know what I saw." Blake looked at Adrian. "Legal flag changes this morning," he said urgently. "In the version we were sent last night. I just sent them the file. If Victor smuggled a modified version into the signing." He didn't finish. He didn't have to. Adrian exhaled slowly. You could almost see the calculations happening behind his eyes. Trust a billionaire partner he'd known for 15 years. Or trust an 18-year-old housekeeper's daughter who had nothing to gain and everything to lose. What would you do? Honestly, who would you believe? If you're still with me, hit that like button if you believe that sometimes the people with the least power see the most truth. Adrian's jaw tightened. Blake, he said quietly, we're not signing anything until we verify every line. Get legal on speaker. Have them bring the last approved draft up here. And he turned to Lena. And you're coming with us. Lena blinked. What? If what you saw is what I think it is, Adrian said, his voice suddenly hard, then I want you in that room when I ask Victor some questions. Lena's heart lurched. Sir, I don't know if that's scary, he finished. It will be. But you deserve to see what happens when someone underestimates the staff. He glanced at Blake. And if she's wrong, he added quietly, I'll deal with it. Not Camila. Not Rosa. Me. Blake nodded once. Lena swallowed. Her legs felt like jelly. But she nodded, too. Okay, she whispered. And just like that, an invisible line shifted. The housekeeper's daughter was no longer just background. She was a witness. And they were walking straight into the lion's den together. The conference room was buzzing when they entered. Victor sat at the head of the table opposite Adrian's chair, casually flipping through a document. Sienna sat beside him, poised and elegant, one leg crossed over the other. Lawyers, board members, and investors lined the sides. The black folder lay in front of Adrian's empty seat, waiting. Ah, there he is, Victor said, as Adrian walked in with Blake and Lena at his side. We were starting to think you'd gotten cold feet. A few people chuckled nervously. Adrian didn't. He took his seat slowly, eyes never leaving Victor's face. Blake stood behind him, phone in hand, the speaker already on. Legal was on the line, the voices faint but audible. Lena hovered near the door, feeling wildly out of place, but Adrian had told her to stay. So she did. Before we sign anything, Adrian said calmly, I want to clarify a few things. Victor's smile didn't falter, but Lena saw a flicker of annoyance. Of course, he said smoothly. Due diligence. You can never be too careful with numbers this big. Exactly, Adrian said. Which is why I'm curious, when exactly did you send over the revised version of Section 14B? Victor blinked. Revised. Adrian tapped the folder in front of him. The one I'm supposed to sign today, he said. It's not the same as the version my lawyers approved yesterday. A murmur rippled through the room. Sienna shifted, just slightly. I'm sure it's just a minor formatting adjustment, Victor said lightly. Some legal language cleanup. Nothing material. Really, Adrian said. He opened the folder. Lena watched his eyes scan the page. You call shifting profit share percentages and removing liability safeguards minor? Adrian asked, his voice still deceptively calm. The head lawyer's voice crackled over the phone. Mr. Cole, we did not approve any changes to those sections, she said firmly. The version in our system still has the original terms. If you're looking at something different, that's not the agreement we signed off on. The room went very still. Victor's smile thinned. Well, now, this is awkward, he said with forced lightness. I'm sure it's just a miscommunication. Our team may have sent over an updated version late last night. No intent to hide anything, of course. Adrian cut him off. When was this placed on the table? He asked quietly. Victor's jaw tightened. What does that matter? It matters, Adrian said, because one of my staff members says she saw you switch the folders after I left the room. Every head in the room turned, slowly, toward Lena. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Victor's eyes narrowed. Who? He demanded. Adrian gestured toward her. Lena. She forced her feet to move. Walking past all those suits, all those eyes, felt like walking through fire. She came to stand near Adrian's chair, hands clasped so tightly together her knuckles were white. Victor stared at her, confused for half a second. Then recognition dawned. The coffee girl, he scoffed. You're seriously entertaining accusations from the help. A few people shifted uncomfortably. Lena felt her cheeks heat, but Adrian's voice cut through. She's not the help, he said coolly. She's a witness. and she has nothing to gain by lying to me. Unlike some people in this room. There it was. The line in the sand. Victor's smile vanished. This is ridiculous, he snapped. We are talking about a multi-billion-dollar partnership, Adrian. You're going to jeopardize it because some kid claims she saw something. Not claims, Adrian said. She told me exactly what she saw. Now I'd like to hear her say it again. For the record. He nodded at Lena. She swallowed. Her voice trembled at first, but it steadied as she spoke. I came in with a pastry tray, she said, eyes on the table, then lifting to meet Adrian's, then Victor's. There was a black folder open in front of your seat, Mr. Cole. The pen was lying across the page. Mr. Hale was standing here, she pointed, with another black folder. That one was closed. When he thought I wasn't looking, he put the open one down on the side table and switched it with the closed one. She turned to Victor. You told me to just leave the tray, she added softly, like I wasn't even there. Victor's face flushed. That is a complete fabrication, he said coldly. This girl is obviously confused. Or someone's putting her up to this. Maybe your people, Adrian, trying to stall the deal. Blake bristled. We don't need to stall anything. We need the truth. The truth. Victor scoffed. The truth is, we have a signed understanding. We are here to finalize it, and you are letting a random staff member derail years of work. He turned to the room. Does this make sense to any of you? He demanded. A few of the board members avoided his gaze. Others looked uncertain. Sienna finally spoke, her voice smooth as silk. Adrian, she said gently, this is obviously a misunderstanding. Victor would never risk something so important over a few percentage points. It's insulting to suggest. It's not a few percentage points, Adrian said sharply. It's a systematic redistribution of risk and profit in your favor. You tried to sneak it past me. His eyes locked on Victor. I want the last approved draft, he said. Now, side by side with this one. And I want to know exactly who authorized these changes. Legal's voice crackled over the phone. We're printing it now and sending it up, Mr. Cole. Victor leaned back in his chair, eyes cold. You're making a mistake, he said quietly. Do you have any idea how this will look if you back out now? The market will punish you. Your competitors will be circling in hours. The media will spin this like you're unreliable, unstable. Let them spin, Adrian said. I'd rather be called unstable than stupid. He stood, pushing the chair back. And for the record, he added, voice steel, if you come to me and said, Adrian, the numbers don't work, we need to renegotiate, we could have had that conversation. Like partners. Like men. Instead, you tried to cheat me in my own house. The room crackled with tension. Victor's jaw clenched. You think you can talk down to me because you got a head start in this game, he hissed. But you forget something, Adrian. I know where your skeletons are buried. Adrian's eyes darkened. Are you threatening me? I'm reminding you, Victor said smoothly, that you and I both know how ugly things can get when numbers this big are involved. Walk away from this deal, and I walk away from our silence. Sienna laid a hand on his arm. Victor. But he shook her off. Don't Victor me, he snapped. He wants war. Fine. Let's give him a show. The board members looked alarmed. Whispers rippled. Lena's stomach dropped. This was bigger than she'd imagined. She'd thought she was just stopping someone from switching a folder. Now, she was watching the collapse of a partnership live. Go ahead, Adrian said quietly. Tell whoever you want whatever you want. Unlike you, I keep receipts. I can take a hit. Can you? They stared each other down. Then the door opened. A junior staff member hurried in, slightly out of breath, holding another black folder. Mr. Cole, he said, from legal. Adrian thanked him and set the new folder beside the old one. He flipped them both open. The room went silent. Side by side, the differences were obvious, even to someone who didn't speak legalese. Lines missing. Clauses altered. Percentages shifted. The head lawyer's voice came over the speaker again, sharper now. That second version is not ours, she said firmly. We did not draft those changes. Whoever did it outside of our process. Blake looked at Victor. So, he said. Do you still want to call this a miscommunication? Victor's mask finally cracked. His eyes flashed with fury. This is business, he snarled. You act like this is some charity game. Everybody plays hardball at this level, Adrian. You just can't handle it when you're not the one holding the bat. Adrian closed both folders and straightened. This deal is over, he said coldly, effective immediately. Gasps. One of the board members shot to his feet. Adrian, think about. I have thought about it, Adrian snapped. And I'd rather lose money than lose my integrity. He turned to Victor. I want you out of my house, he said quietly. Now. Victor laughed. A low, dangerous sound. You think you've won something, hey? He said. You've just lit a match over a lake of gasoline. He grabbed the forged folder, stuffed it under his arm, and stood so fast his chair tipped backward and clattered to the floor. Sienna rose more slowly, her face pale. For a second, her eyes met Lena's, and what Lena saw there wasn't hatred. It was fear. Real, human fear. Then Sienna looked away and followed Victor out, heels clicking like gunshots against the floor. The door slammed behind them. Silence settled over the room like dust. Adrian stood there for a moment, fists clenched at his sides, breathing hard. Then he turned to Lena. You okay? He asked quietly. She blinked, startled that he was asking her that. I don't know, she admitted. He nodded. Fair. He looked at the board members, at the lawyers on the screen, at Blake. I'll deal with the fallout, he said. Meeting adjourned. One by one, people began to gather their things and leave, murmuring, shaken. Lena stood there, feeling like she'd just watched the end of something huge. And she had. She just didn't know yet that it was also the beginning of something else. News travels fast in rich people's houses. News like the billionaire just kicked his partner out in front of everyone. Down in the staff wing, whispers started almost immediately. Did you hear? The deal's off. They were yelling. Security escorted him out. And that girl, I heard she was in the room. Rosa was folding linens when Camila stormed into the laundry room. Rosa, she snapped. Where's your daughter? Rosa's heart dropped into her stomach. Why? She asked carefully. Because, Camila said, practically vibrating. Apparently she decided to insert herself into a multi-billion-dollar contract negotiation. Do you have any idea the kind of chaos she just caused? Rosa's hands trembled around the sheet. What do you mean? She whispered. Camila threw up her hands. She accused Mr. Hale of switching documents. In front of Mr. Cole. In front of everyone. The deal is dead. The board is furious. Investors are panicking. Mr. Cole is. She hesitated. Very calm. Which is almost worse. Rosa's knees went weak. Dios Maya, she breathed. No, no, no. Lena. She sank onto a nearby chair, eyes filling with tears. Camila's expression softened slightly. Look, she said. I don't know exactly what happened in there. All I know is this. You need to talk to your daughter. Because if she lied. Rosa's head snapped up. She wouldn't lie, she said fiercely. Not about something like that. Camila hesitated. Well, she said, for your sake, and Hayes, I hope you're right. Mr. Cole wants to see her in his study. Now. Rosa stood, her legs shaking. I'll find her, she whispered. Lena stood in the corridor outside the study, stomach churning. She'd been there before. Not that long ago. But this time felt different. This time, she wasn't knocking. The door was closed, but she could hear voices. Adrian's. Blake's. Legal is already prepping statements, Blake was saying. We can spin this as due diligence saving us from a predatory deal. Market will still freak out, but at least they'll know we caught it. Victor will go public, Adrian said, tired. He'll paint me as paranoid, unstable. He also committed fraud, Blake pointed out. If he pushes too hard, we push back. There was a pause. Do you believe her? Blake asked quietly. Yes, Adrian said without hesitation. She had no reason to lie. And the documents back her up. Victor tried to cheat us in my house. Blake exhaled. Then, what are you going to do with her? There was a longer pause this time. I don't know yet, Adrian admitted. Thank her. Fire her. Promote her to head of blowing up billion-dollar deals. Blake snorted despite himself. You can't fire her, he said. The optics alone. The door opened. Lena jumped. Adrian stood there, blinking as if he hadn't expected her to be that close. Behind him, Blake was shutting off his phone. Lena, Adrian said. Come in. She swallowed and stepped inside. The study was lined with bookshelves, the kind that made you think of old libraries and long nights. A large window looked out over the city. The desk was cluttered with papers, 2 closed folders, and a half-finished cup of coffee. Sit, Adrian said, gesturing to a leather chair. She perched on the edge of it, hands in her lap. A moment later, the door burst open again. Lena! Rosa cried. She rushed in, ignoring Blake startled. Ms. Alvarez, 1 second. She threw her arms around her daughter. Are you okay? Rosa whispered. What did you do? Mija, why? Lena hugged her back tightly, tears stinging her eyes. I'm sorry, she choked. I couldn't just not say anything. Rosa pulled back, looking between her and Adrian, fear etched in every line of her face. Mr. Cole, please, she said. If she did something wrong, it is my fault. I raised her to tell the truth, but maybe I didn't teach her when to. I will take responsibility. Please don't. Rosa, Adrian interrupted gently. She froze. I'm not firing your daughter, he said. Both Rosa and Lena blinked. You're not? Rosa whispered. No, Adrian said. If anything, I owe her. He leaned back against the edge of his desk, crossing his arms. Let me be very clear, he said, looking at Lena. What you did today was reckless. It could have gone badly for you. Very badly. But it also may have saved this company. And it definitely stopped me from signing a deal that would have given a dishonest man a dangerous amount of leverage over us. He paused. And you did it knowing you might lose everything, he added. That takes guts. Lena swallowed. I was scared, she admitted. Courage isn't the absence of fear, Adrian said quietly. It's doing what's right even when you're terrified. He glanced at Rosa. You raised a brave daughter, he said. Rosa's eyes filled. She's stubborn, she said, laughing through her tears. Like her father. God rest his soul. Adrian smiled faintly. Well, sometimes the world needs stubborn people, he said. He turned back to Lena. So here's the question, he said. What do you want? She blinked. What do you mean? I mean, he said, you're clearly smart. You notice things. You don't just walk past something wrong and pretend you didn't see it. That's Ray. I could use more people like that, not just in my house, but in my company. He held her gaze. Do you want to keep changing sheets and carrying trays? He asked. Or do you want something else? Lena stared at him. Her mind flashed back to her laptop. Scholarship tabs. Student loans. Dreams that felt too big for her small kitchen. She stopped, heart pounding. I want a chance, she said finally. To learn. To do more than just survive. Adrian nodded slowly. I can work with that, he said. He glanced at Blake. What do you think? He asked. Can we find a place for someone who sees what others miss? Blake smiled for the first time that day. I've been saying we need fresh eyes in compliance and internal audit, he said. People who aren't already numb. She'd need training. A lot of it. But, yay, I think we could find something. Rosa stayed between them, stunned. You would give her a job, she whispered. A real job. Adrian's eyes softened. She already did one, he said. Today. He turned back to Lena. I won't force you, he said. If you say no, we'll pretend this conversation never happened. You can finish out the week assisting your mother and go back to your life. If you say yes, you're going to work harder than you've ever worked. You'll be uncomfortable. You'll make mistakes. People will underestimate you, probably more than they already do. But you'll learn, and you'll grow. And maybe one day, you'll be the one in the room making the decisions. Lena's throat tightened. This wasn't a fairy tale. This was still a billionaire offering her a ladder in a world built to keep people like her in the basement. But it was something. It was a door. And it was open. She took a shaky breath. Yes, she said. I want that. Please. Adrian nodded. Okay, he said. Then let's start. Don't worry. I'm not going to jump straight to and then everything was perfect. Because it wasn't. If anything, things got harder before they got easier. Victor did exactly what he promised. He went public. 2 days later, business news headlines screamed about a shock collapse of a megadeal. Anonymous sources described Adrian as erratic, paranoid, impossible to work with. Victor painted himself as the reasonable partner who'd been blindsided by a last-minute change of heart. He left out the part where he tried to sneak a fraudulent contract into a signing. Of course. Rumors swirled. Stock prices dipped. Investors called. Lawyers sharpened their knives. Adrian spent long nights in his office, phone pressed to his ear, voice hoarse from constant damage control. Blake joked once that they should install a cot next to his desk. But through all of that, one thing stayed steady. Adrian did not throw Lena under the bus. Not privately. Not publicly. He never mentioned her name in any statement. He just said, a discrepancy was identified before signing, and in the interest of transparency, we chose not to move forward. Victor knew, of course. He knew exactly who had seen what. Word got back to Lena that he'd tried to get her fired, that he'd yelled at Camila, threatened to pull other business, demanded that the staff member who started this mess be dealt with. Camila, to her credit, had drawn herself up and said, Mr. Cole has made it clear that this staff member is under his personal protection. Victor had stormed out. Lena only heard all this secondhand. But it mattered. Sometimes the biggest things people do for you are the things they refuse to do to you. As for Lena's new job, it started small. She shadowed people, sat in on meetings, learned how the company's internal systems worked. Her badge changed from house staff, temporary, to Cole International, intern. It was a tiny piece of plastic, but it felt like armor. Not everyone was thrilled. Some whispered that she was just a charity case. Others sneered that she'd gotten lucky. A few, like Daniel, were openly supportive. You deserve this, he told her one afternoon as they stood by the office coffee machine. You did what none of us had the guts to do. Lena smiled. I was terrified, she admitted. Yeah, he said. That's why it counts. There were days she wanted to quit. Days when the numbers swam in front of her eyes. When the jargon felt like another language. When she made mistakes and got called out. But there were also days when she caught things. Little things. An inconsistency in an invoice. A pattern in internal reports. A clause in a contract that didn't match the summary. Her supervisor started to trust her. So did Blake. So did Adrian. And slowly, she started to trust herself. A year later, the house felt different. Not because the marble had changed or the fountains flowed any less, but because Lena walked through it like she belonged there now. Not as a guest, not as staff, but as someone who had found a strange, new in-between. She still visited the staff wing, still hugged her mother in the laundry room, still ate in the staff cafeteria sometimes, because the food was honestly better than the catered stuff upstairs. But during the day, she rode the elevator up to the floors where decisions were made, where contracts were signed, where people like Victor used to think they could do whatever they wanted. Victor himself, he'd taken his fight too far. Adrian, fed up, had finally opened the vault of receipts he'd mentioned. Evidence of financial misrepresentation. Emails. Hidden debts. When regulators got involved, Victor discovered something. When you play with fire long enough, eventually, it plays back. His company was fined heavily. He stepped down voluntarily. The island he'd promised Sienna never happened. Sienna, for her part, quietly vanished from the gossip pages and resurfaced years later running a non-profit for women in finance. People can surprise you. Adrian's company recovered. It wasn't easy, but investors, surprisingly, respected the fact that he'd walked away from a bad deal and then proved just how bad it had been. Sometimes integrity looks weak in the moment, but long-term, it's the only thing that lasts. As for Lena, one evening, she stood on the balcony of Adrian's study, watching the city lights flicker on one by one. Adrian stepped out beside her, 2 mugs of tea in his hands. No coffee this late, he said, handing her one. I've learned my lesson. She smiled. Tea is good. They stood in companionable silence for a moment. You know, Adrian said eventually, every time I walk into a negotiation now, I think about that day. Sorry, she joked. Did I traumatize you? He chuckled. In a good way, he said. You reminded me of something I'd started to forget. What's that? She asked. That the smartest people in the room aren't always the ones talking the loudest, he said. Sometimes they're carrying trays, or cleaning rooms, or sitting in the back, watching. He sipped his tea. I built this company from nothing, he said quietly. I like to think I did it on merit. Hard work. Vision. But along the way, I let people like Victor get too close. I let money blind me to character. He glanced at her. You cut through that, he said, with one sentence. Lena smiled. I was just there, she said. Wrong place, right time. Oh, right place, right time, he counted. He studied her for a long moment. What do you want next? He asked. You've been interning for a year. You've taken every course we've thrown at you. You've impressed more people than you know. Where do you see yourself? She looked out at the city. I don't know yet, she said honestly. But I know I don't want to go back to being invisible. I want to be in rooms where decisions are made. And I want to be one of the people making sure no one gets away with what Victor tried to do. Adrian smiled. A guardian of the contracts, he said. I like that. He took a breath. When you're ready, he said, there will be a place for you here. Not as a favor. Not because you saved me. Because you earned it. Lena's chest tightened. Thank you, she whispered. And for what it's worth, he added. That day, you didn't just protect my company. You held me accountable, too. If you hadn't spoken up, I would have signed without checking. That's on me. You forced me to be better. She looked at him, surprised. You're a billionaire, she said. You don't have to admit that. He laughed softly. Exactly, he said. That's why I should. So what's the lesson, hey? Because if you're still watching, there's one. Actually, there are few. First, sometimes the people everyone overlooks are the ones who see the most. Lena was the housekeeper's daughter. The staff. The person others felt safe being themselves around. Good or bad, because they didn't think she mattered. But she was paying attention. So if you're someone who feels invisible right now, at work, at home, at school, don't underestimate yourself. Your perspective matters. Your eyes matter. Your conscience matters. Second, courage doesn't feel like courage when you're doing it. It feels like nausea. Like shaking hands. Like a voice that won't come out at first. Lena didn't stand in that hallway thinking, I'm about to be heroic. She thought, I might ruin everything. But I can't live with myself if I say nothing. That's what real courage looks like. Not the absence of fear, but action in spite of it. Third, power without integrity is a disaster waiting to happen. Victor thought his money and connections made him untouchable. He forgot one simple thing. There's always someone watching. Sometimes it's regulators. Sometimes it's markets. Sometimes it's the housekeeper's daughter carrying a tray of pastries. If you believe people like that should be held accountable, hit that like button. It tells the algorithm, hey, stories about honesty and courage matter. And finally, if you're ever in a position of power, big or small, remember to listen to the quiet voices. Adrian could have laughed Lena off. He could have fired her. He could have signed the contract and blamed her later. Instead, he paused. He listened. He checked. He changed course. That doesn't make him perfect, but it does make him wise. So if you're a manager, a parent, a teacher, a friend, don't just listen to the loudest person in the room. Listen to the one who's scared but speaks up anyway, because that might be the voice that saves you. If you've ever been in a situation where you saw something wrong and had to decide whether to speak up, tell me in the comments, what did you do? Did you stay quiet? Did you say something? No judgment, just honesty. And if you're in that situation right now, wondering if your voice matters, I hope Lena's story reminds you that it does. It might not be easy. You might shake. You might cry afterward. But sometimes, 4 simple words can change everything. I saw them switch folder. Thank you for watching this all the way through. If you got something from this story, if it made you think about courage, power, or integrity, go ahead and subscribe for more real lifestyle stories like this. Because out there in the world, in boardrooms and break rooms and quiet hallways, there are a lot more laners than you think. And maybe you're one of them.